Have you ever heard of the third gate? No one walks through it. Not a single soul willingly chooses it. But me. I was led there. I died at exactly 2:41 a.m. My heart stopped beating for 7 minutes and 12 seconds, according to the hospital records. But for me, death didn't last just 7 minutes. It felt like an entire lifetime, then many more lifetimes, and finally, a place that didn't belong to any life at all. My name is Ethan Carter, 39 years old, a man who once stood on the TEDx stage to talk about the art of purposeful living. Ironically, the day I collapsed right after that talk was the day I realized I had never truly lived. I had only existed as the version of myself that earned the loudest applause. I wasn't afraid of death. I was afraid of the silence that came after it. I don't remember the exact moment my heart stopped. There was no white light, no angels, no grand welcome home. There was only the third gate. It didn't look like any gate you've ever seen. No mist, no brilliance, no sacred music. It simply stood there, silent, alone, and yet it made my entire soul tremble. I had no idea why I was brought here. I hadn't chosen this. A voice echoed in my mind not with words, but with a full, overwhelming knowing. This is the final place. If you step through, there will be no return. I wanted to ask, who am I? What have I done? Where is this? But every question collapsed inward like water being sucked into the eye of a storm. I stood before that gate, unable to move forward, yet unable to turn away. Behind me were souls choosing Gate 1, where a gentle light was leading them home. Gate 2, where they would return to another life to complete unfinished lessons. But me, I was brought to Gate 3. No light, no choice, only a fierce, brutal silence like a giant mirror reflecting everything I had ever denied. Why am I here? The question echoed inside my head like a cry with no answer. I thought I was a good man. I inspired people, I helped others through their pain, and I wrote books about self-healing. But in that hallway of memories, all I could see was an Ethan who was exhausted, hollow, and running away from himself. I had asked thousands of people, "What are you living for?" And now, I was the one forced to answer it for myself. A soul stood beside me, without a clear form, without gender. Only a pair of eyes that seemed to hold the entire universe, looked into me and said, "Ethan, the third gate isn't for those who run away. It's for those who have reached the final limit of the self. You were not brought here to be judged. You were brought here to see yourself." I trembled, not out of fear, but because for the first time I saw all of me, the things I had been too afraid to face, the wounds I had buried under layers of dust, the truths I had avoided beneath the mask of being a healer and messenger. Ethan, are you willing to see everything you've ever been? Are you ready to go back through hundreds of lifetimes just to relearn one single lesson that was left unfinished? I didn't know if I even had a choice anymore. I was no longer Ethan the life coach. I was simply a soul, standing before one question. If you were given the chance to live again, would you live any differently? I had thought that gate was the end, but it turned out it was only the beginning. And you won't believe who I met first. In the very first life I ever lived. There were nights when I stood under dazzling lights and felt completely invisible. Just like that night, the final night before my heart stopped when I stood alone in a 5-star hotel room, with a soul as hollow and crumbling as the fake decorative walls around me. My name is Ethan Carter, 39 years old, speaker, life coach, author of 2 best-selling books, and a man slowly dying inside day by day. When I was a child, I used to dream that I would save the world. I swore I would never live a dull life like my father, a man who quietly collapsed at his desk at the age of 51, with a service medal on his wall and an empty soul. I swore I would be different. I would succeed. I would make the world know my name. And I did it. But while I was teaching others how to live with purpose, I lost my soul somewhere along that race. Like a gold miner, I filled my pockets with glory, never realizing I had left my heart behind on the side of the mountain. I smiled for the world. But at night, I cried in silence. I taught people how to let go, while clinging desperately to the image of the healer, a suit of armor I couldn't take off. I spoke about forgiveness, but I had never truly forgiven the father who chose his career over his family. I spoke about living in the present, but I was haunted by the past and paralyzed by the future. There are some wounds you think you've forgotten, but in truth, they've only been sleeping, waiting for the moment you're at your weakest to rise and consume you. Last year, I lost my father. 6 months ago, My wife filed for divorce and took our little daughter with her. I lost everything. All I had left was the stage, the applause, the six-figure speaking contracts. But I no longer had myself. Death doesn't begin when your heart stops beating. It begins the night you no longer have a reason to wake up the next morning. You never had time for me. Now I don't have time for you. That was the last thing I ever said to him. I always thought I was right. That success would heal all wounds. That if I just moved fast enough, I could outrun my past. But the truth is, no matter how far you run, the past is a shadow you can never separate from yourself. If you don't heal it, you become it. That night, right before the fateful talk, I missed a call from an unknown number. One single text message followed. Ethan, no one truly wins by abandoning themselves. Dad. I thought it was some kind of cruel joke. I deleted the message. I stepped onto the stage. I smiled. I inspired. And then, I died. I thought I had chosen life. But it was life itself that chose me, and pulled me into the scariest and most beautiful journey a soul could ever experience. You won't believe it. The first thing I saw after death wasn't heaven. It was a door leading back to the farthest reaches of my past. They say death comes like a sudden storm. For me, it came like a tiny crack, then shattered the whole sky. That night, after my TEDx talk, I returned to my hotel. My body felt unbearably heavy, as if every breath was dragging a boulder behind it. I loosened my tie and sank into a chair. My phone lit up with hundreds of congratulatory messages, but I didn't open a single one. I bowed my head and closed my eyes. And when I opened them again, I wasn't there anymore. My heart, the proud machine that had fueled a lifetime of chasing achievement, has betrayed me. There was no warning. It simply stopped. A moment with no sound, no light, no sensation, only a freefall, a weightless, timeless plunge. I drifted into a strange void. No more body, no more name, only a vague awareness that I still was. But who was I? What was I? Then I felt something. Not light, not sound, but a silent calling. A pull like an underground ocean, quiet, yet impossible to resist. I was being drawn forward, and I saw it. The third gate. Plain, silent, standing alone like a forgotten mountaintop in the history of the universe. No signs, no welcome, no angelic guayers, only a cold, endless void stretching out into infinity. I stood there frozen, trying to remember who I was. Ethan Carter? Speaker? Life coach? Failed father? The little boy who used to cry in the dark when his father came home late? I wasn't sure anymore. A faint glow appeared beside me. A soul, or rather a presence. No face, no form, only eyes deep and pure, like the very first gaze a child gives to the world. They didn't speak, but I heard them. You've been running long enough, Ethan. Are you ready? Ready for what? I didn't know. But I also knew. There was nowhere left to go back to. I stepped closer to the gate. Each step felt like walking through layers of fossilized memory. The times I lashed out at others just to hide my fear. The times I turned away from love because I was afraid of being hurt. The times I wore the cloak of success to bury my shame. I placed my hand on the gate. It was cold as death, but deep within, there was a faint pulse like a heart waiting to be revived. Another voice, deeper this time, rose from somewhere within me. If you step through, every mask will be burned away. Every illusion will dissolve. Every ounce of pride will collapse. And you will be left with one thing yourself, unpainted, unguarded. I shuddered. I had never been this afraid. Not of death, but of the possibility that, once everything was stripped away, there would be nothing left of me. Do you still want to keep running, Ethan? I closed my eyes and stepped through. There was no explosion, no blinding light, just another freefall. This time, without a bottom. I floated in the void, completely exposed. Only awareness and truth remained. And then, in that endless darkness, a massive screen appeared before me. Not a movie screen, but fragments of memory. Not from one life, but from many. A child wandering the streets of 15th century Istanbul, clutching a piece of bread. A Viking warrior, hands soaked in blood, eyes burning in the fury of battle. A black woman sold at an 18th century American slave market, her eyes void of hope. A Japanese monk, kneeling before a shrine, weeping in utter silence. They were all me, all of them, coming to life before my very eyes. And I finally understood every scar, every loss, every betrayal. It was not a punishment. It was a lesson. I collapsed, or rather, my soul buckled under the vastness and brutal truth of the cycle of rebirth. And then a realization struck me like lightning. I was never a victim. I was simply a soul learning how to love in the most painful of forms. But the lesson wasn't over. A name, a distant, unfamiliar memory began to echo in my mind. A name was about to lead me into the most dangerous part of this journey. The part even the bravest souls tend to avoid. I thought I had seen it all, until they brought me to the room where my darkest secrets were waiting to be revealed. Would you dare to face the darkest part of yourself? If it were the only thing that could save your soul? I was led into a room. No walls, no ceiling, no windows. There was only a space filled with soft, dim light, like mist seeping gently through the skin. In the center of the room, floating in midair, was a transparent cube, glowing with faint pulses of light, like a quiet breath. That cube was me. All of me. Not my body. Not my titles. Not the stories I had told the world. But everything I had ever thought, ever felt, ever done, even the things I had tried so hard to forget. The voice of the presence beside me this time, no longer gentle. It was sharp as a blade, cold as ice. Look. I had no choice. And so, I looked. I saw myself at the age of 9 standing outside my parents' bedroom door, listening to them argue. I clenched my tiny fists and made a silent vow. I will never need anyone again. I saw myself, at 22, quietly turning my back on my best friend, right when he needed me the most. I'm really busy, I'm sorry. One text. One missed call. A life ended in loneliness. I saw myself, at 35, sitting in a luxury apartment, pushing my wife away with cold, cutting words. I don't have time for your emotional nonsense. And her eyes, like a small candle, slowly flickered out right in front of me. Each memory appeared not just as an image, but as pure, unfiltered emotion. The anger, the regret, the loneliness, the fear, the faint flickers of hope that were once suffocated. Every action I had taken, I had to feel it again. Not from my perspective, but from those I had touched, for better or worse. I felt my father's sorrow when I refused to hold his hand one last time. I felt my friend's despair as he typed his final message, with no reply. I felt the emptiness in my ex-wife's heart as she walked away from the house we once called home. There was no judge. There was no sentence. Only truth. And truth doesn't need to scream to break you. I collapsed. A soul with no strength left to resist. A naked child, standing in a sea of shattered memories. I sobbed not with physical tears, but with the raw, racking spasms of my very consciousness. I begged to return. I begged for a chance to make it right. I begged for forgiveness. But there was no going back. There is no undo button in the soul's universe. You cannot change the past, the voice echoed again, this time like a distant comfort. But you can change your very nature through understanding. I lifted my head. The transparent cube in front of me began to tremble softly. A small crack appeared like a thread of light spreading outward from its center. Forgiveness doesn't come from denying your mistakes. It comes from embracing everything you have ever been and choosing to be born again, out of the ruins. Amid the glowing void, a hand reached out. Not from the other presence, but from a small soul, clear and pure as crystal. A little girl, about 6 years old. Her eyes were crystal clear, yet held a wisdom far beyond her years. She smiled softly and whispered, "Ethan, I've always been here, waiting for you to remember." I recognized her. She wasn't my daughter. She wasn't my sister. She wasn't anyone I had known in this lifetime. She was the original soul I had forgotten through lifetimes of striving, hatred, and fear. The pure, untouched spirit. The true me. I reached out my hand, and in the moment my finger touched hers, a burst of light erupted. Not loud, not violent, but gentle, like a mother's first embrace for her lost child. "Are you ready to move forward, Ethan?" And I knew the real journey was only just beginning. I used to believe that salvation came from perfecting myself. But it turns out, it comes from loving even the worst parts of who I am. In the next part, I will share with you the moment I faced the final choice, the choice that would change the destiny of my soul forever. The small, pure hand of the little soul still held mine warm, patient, without force. I was no longer Ethan Carter, the successful man. I was no longer Ethan Carter, the abandoned child. I was simply an idea trying to find its way back to itself. Beyond the dim light, the third gate appeared once more. But now I truly saw it. It was no longer barren, no longer silent. It was pulsing like a living being, waiting without urgency, without judgment. The voice echoed again, this time like the voice of a wise old teacher. It's time to choose, Ethan. I stood there motionless. I knew. Deep within my soul, I knew. Once I stepped through the third gate, I would let go of all ego. Give up every title, every story I had ever woven around myself. Become a completely new soul. But the price was forgetting everything. No memory of the pain I had endured. No scars to prove the battles I had fought. I would return to the world like a blank slate, forced to either find it all again or never find it at all. If you step through, you will forget who you once were. If you turn back, you will remember, but you will continue to carry every wound you have yet to heal. I quietly looked at the little being of light beside me. She gazed up at me, her round eyes full of trust, without any pressure. I recalled every wound, the pain of losing my father, the fear of being unloved, the shame of failure, the loneliness that gnawed at me even in the middle of the loudest applause. Something broke open inside me. A thought. I have lived too long trying to prove I was worthy. And if I could choose again, I didn't want to live to prove anything anymore. I wanted to live to love the brokenness, to love the scars, to love even the imperfections within myself. Ethan, life is not about achieving. Life is about experiencing. The teacher's voice echoed one last time, like a gentle breeze gliding across a still lake. I tightened my grip on the little girl's hand, and I stepped forward, without looking back, without hesitation, without needing to know what awaited on the other side. As the soles of my conscious being touched the threshold of light, the entire space around me seemed to dissolve. The light shattered into tiny universes spinning around me. I no longer felt weight, no longer felt boundaries. I was light. I was moving. I was the choice itself. A whirlwind of memories surged through me. My mother's laughter, my father's faint breathing in the hospital, my daughter's scream when she fell off her bike for the first time. The trembling in my hands was the first time I held a microphone on stage. All of it, shattered like petals in a sudden wind. But they weren't lost. They melted into me like a river flowing into the ocean. There was no longer me and my memories. There was only one. And in that fleeting moment, just before everything faded to black, I heard the gentlest whisper I had ever known. You have chosen love. And then nothing. No light. No sound. No memory. No Ethan Carter. Only a faint heartbeat, so soft, so distant, like the very first call of a new world welcoming me home. And that world was the very place I had to return to. I had let go of everything. But when I woke up, I realized the real journey had only just begun. In the next part, I'll tell you about the strangest thing that happened when I opened my eyes for the first time in an entirely new body. I opened my eyes. There were no angelic choirs, no bursts of heavenly fireworks, only the steady rhythm of a ventilator, and the tear-filled eyes of a woman sitting by my bedside were my mother's. The light pierced my eyes like 1,000 needles. Not the light of heaven, but the harsh, honest light of the physical world. I was back, inside a body that felt heavy, painful, and weak, almost like it didn't belong to me. All the memories of my former life were hazy like a distant dream. And yet, strangely, I could remember one thing clearly, that final moment before the third gate. The moment I chose love over fear. The doctors said I had been clinically dead for 7 minutes and 12 seconds. They called me a miracle survivor. But I knew the real miracle wasn't that I didn't die. The real miracle was that I had let go of an old soul to welcome a new one. I was no longer the Ethan Carter everyone had known. No longer the speaker. No longer the best-selling author. No longer the hollow image of success. I was someone learning how to live all over again. Everything began anew in silence. I learned how to hold a spoon. Learned how to walk with fragile, trembling legs. Learned how to hear the wind blowing through the window without rushing to think about deadlines or contracts. Learned how to look into another person's eyes without defense. Some days, I would sit for hours just listening to the sound of my heartbeat. Each beat felt like a reminder, you're still here. You still have a chance. I called my little girl, not to ask for her forgiveness, but simply to say, I love you. And I didn't expect anything in return, because I understood true love doesn't demand anything. I began rewriting the pages of my old journals. But this time, I didn't write to prove anything to anyone. I wrote to capture each moment I was truly present for. I turned down many speaking invitations, not because I disrespected the stage, but because I finally understood the spotlight can never warm a lonely heart. I walked in the rain without an umbrella. I smiled at strangers on the street. I held my mother a little longer. I apologized to my father, though he was long gone every time I quietly thought of him. I lived, not to become someone, but simply to be. Someone once asked me, "Did you see heaven?" I smiled and said, "I didn't need to see heaven. I brought it back with me." Now, whenever I find myself standing amid life's chaos, I can still hear that ancient whisper somewhere deep inside. You have chosen love. And I know every breath I take today, every glance I offer to another, every smile, every tear, every time I hold someone's hand in silence. All of it, our heartbeats flowing from the third gate. Salvation isn't waiting at the end of the road. Salvation is in the way we take the very first step. If you're listening to me tell this story, maybe you too are standing before a gate in your own life. Maybe it's the forgiveness you haven't been able to give someone. Maybe it's a dream you abandoned long ago. Maybe it's your true self waiting patiently for you to return. And there's just one thing I want to say to you: don't be afraid. If you dare to let go, you will find yourself and heaven right there in that very moment. They told me not to open the third gate, but when I stepped through, I didn't just find my soul. I found the life I had always been waiting for. The only question left is, are you ready to step through your gate? If you've ever been through something that made you feel like a part of you died inside, leave a comment below. Tell me your story. I'm here to listen, as someone who has walked through his gate. And if stories like this one touch your heart, hit the follow button, because there are many more souls whose stories are waiting to be told. And maybe, just maybe, one day, the next story will be yours.